This is Amanda from Roland, and I'm here with Darryl Jones, accomplished bassist for Eric Clapton, Sting, Madonna. He's played with Miles Davis as well and is currently with the Rolling Stones. How are you today?
Doing very well, thanks very much.
Good, good. Maybe you could start by kind of telling us a little bit about yourself and your beginnings. You know, how did the bass, become part of your life?
When I was in third grade, there was a school talent show. At the end of the show, a band played, and I didn't realize that these guys had been playing, but one of my neighbors was one of the guitarists on stage, and a couple of the guys who were older upperclassmen that I knew were also in the band. So I remember it really hit me like a shot that that's it, that's what I want. At that moment, I really felt like that's what I want to do with my life. And so when I saw my friend Angus Thomas, again, my neighbor, I asked him to teach me to play the guitar. And he said, well, what do you want to learn to play, the lead guitar or the bass guitar? And I didn't know the difference. I didn't know there was a difference. I thought all guitars had 6 strings. And I said, well, what do you play? And he said, I play the bass. And I said, well, then I want to learn how to play the bass.
So what was the turning point, where you're going pro, you're going all out?
I think when I went to a high school with a really great music program. And I guess right before I went to that high school, I really loved basketball. But I was about 5 feet tall. And when I saw the basketball players on the high school team, I thought, well, I guess it's going to be music. So that's how I got really involved in the music program there. But it was a really great program where I got really about close to 4 years of professional experience because there was so much music. We played a lot of different kinds of music. So when I got to college and realized, oh, I've got a little bit more experience than most of the guys that I was playing with in college, it was when But I guess from the beginning, I always felt like this was going to be it for me. I always felt like music was going to be my career.
Have you played Roland gear in the past? Is this your first piece, kind of?
I bought the V guitar system a number of years back. On my music, I've been recording guitar myself on some of the things. Mm-hmm. And I really fell in love with the whole idea of the Cosm thing, the modeling, the sound modeling idea. I heard about this, the VB-99 system, and saw 1 or 2 guys, just little clips, YouTube of guys using it, and thought, well, maybe it's time for me to check into that again. I'm just starting the journey, but I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, what have you discovered thus far? There's
a sound in the VB-99, it's called Harmonist, that's really intriguing to me. I really like the idea of that kind of thing. It's actually movie score-esque, so I like the idea of being able to play those kinds of things from the bass guitar. That's very exciting to me. I'm a jazz lover, so I really love saxophone. I'm excited about some kind of saxophone type sound that I could use as a solo voice. Trumpet, of course, would be something that would be exciting for me to mess around with, as well as more sophisticated ideas like triggering sequences and even triggering picture or video, which I guess if you can get into the MIDI world, then these are things that. But these are the things that I'm really excited about in moving in this direction, kind of solo multimedia bass application or something like that.
When did this idea kind of form?
I guess it's just something that it's been in the back of my mind the last few years, and with the technology now coming to the place where you can actually play something and not feel a whole lot of latency and not feel that it's sometimes tracking and sometimes not. It's brought all of these old ideas that I had back to the forefront.
I would imagine that you've probably witnessed the evolution of bass technology over the years. How do you think today kind of compares to what you've seen in the past?
I think the VB-99 is it's a serious step. I was just even last night I was at home and I turned off the bass part of the feed just to really see if it feels natural to play some of the synth sounds. And I was actually trying to find latency, and there really isn't very much. I think things have come around to where it's really workable now, and really, so I'm excited about that.
How are you integrating the VB-99 currently? Is it more studio, or are you looking at stage as well? Or?
Well, yeah, it's something that I would really like to use. Right now, I mean, I'm a relatively newcomer to the technology, but I'm really curious about using it as a solo bass vehicle and being able to add a whole lot more to just the regular kind of bass solo experience, you know.
Tell us about your jazz background, and you played bass for Miles Davis.
I grew up in what I guess I like to refer to as a two-radio family. My dad was listening to early Miles records and Oscar Peterson, Count Basie, and stuff like that. My mom was listening to more like James Brown and Sly Stone and Curtis Mayfield, that kind of stuff. And so I guess just hearing those two different kinds of things growing up, I think even before I started playing, those two types of music had an influence on me, so that when I got the opportunity to play with Miles, that background was really perfect, because I knew a little bit about jazz and had played a little bit of jazz in high school. And then, of course, I grew up dancing to Motown and that kind of stuff. And it was kind of a mixture of what he was doing at the time. But the story of how I got to play with Miles Davis, his nephew and I had been working around in Chicago on the music scene, and would, sometimes just sit in the car and dream about, what it would be like to play with Miles. He's a drummer, his name's Vince Wilburn. He was just back from Japan on a tour and decided to make a change in the bass department, and asked Vince if he knew anybody. And Vince said, yeah, there's a guy in Chicago. And so they called me on the phone, and he said, Miles wants to hear you play the bass on the phone.
On the phone?
Yeah. And I thought he was joking, of course. And then when I realized he was serious, I said, well, hold on, let me go get the bass. And he says, no, you hold on. And then Miles got on the phone and said, when can you be in New York? And so, the next day I was in New York and I auditioned. And that was a really, he asked me to play along with the band tape, like a board tape that the band was, the stuff that they've been doing in Japan. And he asked me to play a B-flat blues really slow. And I started playing it real slow, and he stopped me and he said, no, I mean really slow. And I started playing it and he stopped me again and said, no, I mean really slow. And so that was the audition, and I got hired that afternoon. I played with him for 4 years over a 5-year period. I played with him for 2 years, and then I was really lucky enough to work with Sting during that period when he had left the Police. And so I played with Sting for about a year, and then I was actually asked back with Miles, which was really a blessing, And I guess I'd say that, playing with Miles is, it's an education. It really is. I mean, I learned a lot about what not to play. I learned a lot about active listening in a way that is not just how you listen to music when you're in the shower, but really being present, And I guess in a way, I took some acting class since I moved out here. Being in the moment, it's really that same thing, the whole method acting thing, and a lot of the experience that I got with Miles really are about just being in the moment and not worrying about too many other things, just being in the moment and really listening to what's being played.
So it sounds like there was a method behind your rehearsals in that group of people.
Yeah, definitely. Miles's rehearsals were always a little bit like unrehearsal. He would, whatever you had found that worked for the show that we were playing at the time, he would kind of take that away from you and force you to find something new. Again, that's really an incredible exercise because the material, a lot of varied kinds of things. There were like jams over certain changes with kind of motifs that led you to different parts of the tune. There was a blues, obviously, and then there were later on there were songs, ballads, and stuff like that. So there was a lot of different material to try to wrap your mind around. And once you'd found a part, it was always like, okay, I finally found something that works over that. And after a few weeks, he would take that from me, and he'd say, "Don't play that anymore." You know, so it was a really incredible learning opportunity.
How do you think that experience contrasts with some of the other people you've worked with and some of your experiences since then?
You know, I tend, or from my perspective, I kind of do the same thing with everybody, but I just try to play the music that obviously rock and roll music, you know, the music that I've been playing with the Stones these last years is more simple. But basically what I do is the whole idea that I got to play with the Rolling Stones, or, you know, when my desire came from me listening to the Steel Wheels record and thinking to myself, you know, how I play could work with that, I think. I'm a simple player. I'm not, you know, it's not a lot of flash, not a lot of bells and whistles. I'm kind of for lack of a better term, like a meat and potatoes player. You know, I really dig holding down the bottom. And I thought the way that I do that might work with the Stones, and you know, and luckily, you know, I guess somebody around there thought so too.
Yeah, how'd you get hooked up with them?
A friend in Chicago called me and told me that Bill Wyman was leaving the band. And I told him, well, you know, it's been rumors about that for, you know, 20 years. And he said, no, I think he's really leaving this time. And he said, do you think I should maybe get management's phone number for you? And I said, well, yeah, I guess so. So I called the management and told them that, you know, I heard that they might be looking for a bass player, and if there was a list, that I'd like to get on the list, and I'd like to come in and play. And that's about a year later, that's what happened.
So you've been touring and working with them for a while. Have you been playing on the records and all that sort of stuff, or is it more of a touring gig?
No. I've played on all of the records that they've done since then, except for this last one, which was done in 1970, I guess. But yeah, I've been on, you know, on at least some of all of the records since November of '93. So yeah, it's been almost 16 years now, more than 15 years now.
How's the touring experience? How's it been?
Great hotels, great. I mean, even the backstage situation with the Stones is really pretty elaborate and well. You know, they take very good care of the people that work with them. So it's great. It's really great.
How do you think that's impacted your music, working with them closely?
You know, Keith Richards, his records really struck me as a very interesting hybrid of rock and roll, particularly the work that, you know, that he did with Charlie Drayton and Steve Jordan. Those are really the two guys who got me involved in playing rock and roll. Mm-hmm. I was more or less doing the electric jazz thing before that, and hearing them play on that Talk Is Cheap record is really what kind of made me think, well, that's the rock and roll that I want to play. It's a little bit forward of you know, of that stuff. And so that definitely, playing with them has definitely led me a little bit more away from the fusion jazz stuff into something a little bit more earthy with some of the elements of blues and rock and roll.
What would you say is your #1 thought when you go on stage for a performance?
I just try to play the best that I can play in the moment, you know, or choose, you know, make the best choices and listen carefully. I think I just try to play my best. Mm-hmm. That's really helped me, you know, because, you know, when you're younger and, you know, not necessarily the audience, but particular people in the audience that you might be, you know, concerned with what they think. And just here in the last few years, I guess I have enough experience where I don't think about that stuff anymore. I just try to play the best that I can play. you know, and try to enjoy myself. I like that. Very cool.
What else are you working on these days? Is it mostly Stone stuff, or do you have any side projects that?
Yeah, I'm working on some music of my own, which is, again, you know, really references the music of my childhood, I guess, you know. And the Stones are part of that. I mean, I remember Satisfaction. I was very young, but I remember listening to that on the radio, and James Brown and Sly Stone and Curtis Mayfield, all of those things, as well as Jimi Hendrix. So the music that I'm working on is in a way referential of that.
Is it? Are you working on an album, or are you playing out?
I'm working on an album. I'm working on an album, and you know, hopefully, I'll be playing out in the fall. Oh, that's pretty cool.
What would you want to say to up-and-coming bass players, you know, who are trying to kind of form their voice and their place in this business and in this particular time?
I think really experiment with things like the VB-99 and with sounds, and do that, as well as, you know, study the masters, of course. You know, if you're a bass player, you should be listening to James Jamerson and all of the guys, you know, from that era, because they really taught us what electric bass is and how to play it. So I think definitely at least a two-pronged approach, understanding the classic electric bass thing, and definitely exploring the possibilities that, you know, that modern technology is affording us now.